Welcome to another edition of DHN, your home for clear, consistent crypto content. I'm your host, as always, Wade Teamer. Thank you for joining us in this one. We're going to be talking about a new asset, new to the channel, but Sui's been around for a couple of years now. And the reason why they've been added to the content roster is because when it comes to Web3 gaming, Sui is preparing to drop something that will shake this entire ecosystem, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we're going to talk about it in this video, but first I want you to understand why I decided to make this move, why I'm buying even more, if you will. Sui can be described as a multi-purpose smart contract layer 1 blockchain. We're not going to get too deep into the technicals because as an investor, it's good to know these things, but you want to more so understand what's being built with it, because what's being built with the or on top of the underlying infrastructure is what's going to bring value to the chain, and that's what ultimately drives price. And on the other end, it's the applications that reach the people that we like to highlight on this channel. Now, when it comes to Sui, they have a concentration into 3 different verticals. You have Sui for finance, you have Sui for gaming, and you have Sui for commerce. Each of these verticals, very lucrative. We're going to touch on some of the partnerships that they have within each vertical. But I do want you to know something about Sui from a technical side that was very interesting to me. So Sui uses the Move programming language. Now, I have never heard of this programming language before, but when I started to read some articles about it, I understood why. It's because this is the same programming language that evolved from the Facebook Diem project. Now, guys, I don't know if you were in the space 2020, 2021, but Facebook was about to take over this market. But the SEC, CFTC, US government, and other large crypto entities, we're talking about some players that are very influential today, Consensus, pretty much blocked this thing from happening because they figured it out. They solved the blockchain trilemma. They were going to incorporate this into Facebook, and they would have already automatically had a market of 2.5 billion people. It came with a stable coin, a wallet, the whole 9. But the powers that be felt that it would have caused a monopoly in the blockchain space. Can you imagine that, guys? So long story short, what ended up happening to Diem was that it was in essence broken apart. Individual components of the IP, how the blockchain worked, the programming language, it was broken off. And I had the feeling that once Silvergate bought all of that, we'd start to see it everywhere else. Sui isn't the only chain that uses the Move programming language. Aptos is another one that has a lot of momentum, gets a lot of attention, pretty decent price movement, and they're constantly adding new big name players to their ecosystem. And now with this knowledge, it has me thinking this Move programming language may have something to do with it. Now, I'll leave a link to this article, this blog post from the Sui Foundation, so that way you can read this story yourself. They go into a little bit of the downfall of the Diem Libra project. You may know it under that name, but it also explains how the technical know-how behind that project began to spread throughout crypto. Very fascinating. It would make for a perfect doc. It really would. Now, so that's the programming language. You can look at that as sitting at the core of the Sui Protocol. Again, in future content, we will dive more so into the technical side for those who like that. Now, what's being built on top of it? They have a number of applications, again, spread across finance, commerce, gaming, and, you know, the nuanced levels in between. Well, one of the ones that stood out to me, you can see it right here, is 6 Clovers. The reason why is because we haven't seen or heard anything about 6 Clovers in a good minute. Some of you may remember back in 2021, this headline here, former PayPal tech lead launches 6 Clovers cross-border payment network. Now, originally, this was on Algorand. Since then, they've gone through a bit of a rebrand. Versal is now what it's called. However, they still show, well, not only do they still work in the same field, payments, compliance, security, stable coins, cross-border, things like that, but they still support Algorand, as you can see, Arbitrum, AVAX, Ethereum's up there, HBAR, that's great to see, Polygon, Moonbeam, Solana, Stellar. So now we can add Sui to this mix, and this is a pretty powerful player. There was other news associated with the development. There was a lot of discussion around the whole ISO situation, creating the cross-border payment rails that were going to be compatible, stuff like that. That's how we discovered 6 Clovers. You can also see, though, kind of slid by really quickly, but Mistin Labs, that is the organization that founded the Move programming language, as well as the Sui Protocol. We're going to talk a little bit more about them before we leave for sure. But 6 Clovers is now known as Versal, folks, and that's very interesting, very cool to see. Shout out to Sui for bringing that back up to us. Now, the biggest reason, though, that I am putting my attention, adding Sui to this content roster, folks, is the gaming. It is definitely the gaming. Now, when it comes to current titles, they have a few, about 23 projects listed on their website. And a lot of these look pretty cool. Not going to lie to you. Haven's Compass actually partnered with Scale, I believe, not too long ago. And I did play a little Haven's Compass, first-person shooter, Call of Duty style game with, you know, its own unique elements set in a sci-fi universe. Pretty decent package. I will admit that to you. But what caught my attention as far as gaming is this title here, Final Stardust. Now, the biggest marketing pitch about this is that this is a multimedia product. That means it's not just a game. There's a manga involved. There are trading cards that you can buy and trade in the real world as well as on the game. So they plan on creating this whole universe around Final Stardust, right? And if we go over here, it's a very young project, but they're making some waves, guys. And what I like the most is this multimedia element. The multimedia element is what will be the biggest separator in the Web3 gaming space. You have to have multimedia, because the approach right now, dealing with the normal way that people perceive Web3 games, crypto games in general, that's dictating the pace in which these companies get involved, right? The Web2 companies get involved. But if you're a Web3 IP, a Web3 game, and you build out your entire universe before going to a Web 2 in any form, you have leverage. That's what I'm getting at here. So I'm going to make a point to identify these things whenever I see them, guys. So that's why I got Final Stardust on my radar. Now, the biggest reason, though, altogether, overall, why Sui has been added to the content roster, slotted under the gaming vertical, is because they're getting ready to jump into hardware, ladies and gentlemen. Web3 gaming hardware. Now, I remember when the blockchain-based mobile phones were a thing about 3 to 4 years ago. But this hardware for Web3 games, now this was announced in April of this year. I believe I was on that hiatus around that time. No, this was a couple days after I came back, because I came back on April 8th, the eclipse. I did that on purpose. And I missed this news. I'll admit that. But look at this here. I need to pause it right here. Social sign-in. Do you know how revolutionary that's going to be, ladies and gentlemen? It's going to make the whole process that much easier. That is why I get so excited when we talk about Immutable and their Immutable Passport. It's the functionality. Another reason the Scale is catching so much attention is because removing the gas fees improves overall experience. It improves the overall functionality. There's not many details about this device, guys, but I can tell you who created it, where it's been seen recently. This was a demo that was done at Consensus this year. Now, I don't know if this is the exact model. I'm going to go ahead and assume this is a prototype, because it doesn't really look like what we see here. Obviously, I wouldn't expect it to. The final model will look very different. That's typically how these things go. But Playtron is a very interesting company, folks. All right. Now, right at the top of their website, there's a piece of text that struck me right away. Playtron extracts the gaming ecosystem from Windows and leaves everything else behind. That very sentence, almost word for word, was the exact same line of thinking that developers for the Xbox console had. That was their whole thing. They wanted to take Windows operating system, strip it down, and just take the power, the core elements of it to build out the Xbox. That's an amazing story, guys. I would definitely advise you to recommend you look up the story of the Xbox. Like, as an Xbox kid growing up, I didn't know half of this stuff. Like, they told the story about how Bill didn't want to get into video games, but Nintendo made a move. No, Sony got ready to make a move with the PlayStation 2. They were going to incorporate internet connectivity. We all saw what happened. You can listen to music, DVDs, so forth and so on, extra memory. Bill Gates took that as a threat, because prior to that, it was Microsoft that dominated the living room. But Sony had plans to, Sony already had other appliances, entertainment appliances. The PS2 console, Microsoft looked at that as the final piece to put a stranglehold on households. That ultimately led to Bill Gates putting together a team of people to build out what ultimately will become the Xbox. And the motivator, the driving motivation for the team that ultimately went on to create the Xbox was this exact same sentence here. So it just struck me as odd. I'm not going ahead and say that the core members of the original Xbox team from 20-something years ago are working with Playtron. I haven't dug that far yet. But that emphasizes their way of thinking, and that gives me confidence, if that makes sense. Now, Playtron, they're actually running Linux. Now, I have to do my, knowledge dig up on the intricacies of the Linux operating software compared to other softwares. When you follow Playtron on X, they actually share and talk about a lot of that information. So you'll see me reposting some of that I find interesting. But the whole game plan here with Playtron, folks, is to tap into the $100 billion projected mobile game revenue over the next 6 years. On top of that, through their relationships with Sui and other Web3 gaming entities, they want to have blockchain games within the palm of your hand, because they're also launching another handheld device you can see here for Steam Deck. So Playtron is getting ready to shake up the market, and Sui, taking advantage of their expertise and their hardware capabilities to shake up the Web3 gaming space. I think that's worth watching, folks. I think that's worth watching. So we're definitely going to keep Sui on the radar to see how this unfolds. Now, it really got interesting as I kept scrolling, because the founders of Playtron, man, former Boost Mobile, former Google, Android, Meta, interesting connection there, right? Atari. So obviously the video game experience is there, even from Sega. Wow. And then of course you can see too, Miston Labs investing as listed as one of the investors. So there's a lot of synergy between the Sui Protocol and Playtron relationship. Now I have a deeper understanding of how it all came together. It has me excited because this is a first, ladies and gentlemen. We're entering an age for Web3 gaming where now hardware is on the table. And that just makes me think about what comes after that. We have handhelds first. What's stopping someone from creating the first actual blockchain gaming console? When you look at the players that are moving into the Web3 gaming space, you have the right entities that specialize in hardware development, that specialize in software. All they need to do is come together with the blockchain as the centerpiece. Oh boy. All right. You guys thought the 2021 rally for gaming was insane. Wait till these hardware devices hit the market, folks. Now, Playtron isn't the only one involved with the hardware race. That is the other side to this story. You can also bring up the Solana saga and their gaming capabilities. But when it comes to gaming on Solana, I'm learning that there are still a few more pieces to the puzzle that they really need before it goes crazy. They actually have it. There was an SDK that was just launched by Bifrost a couple days ago. Waiting to see how that unfolds. We'll talk about that in a few days. But they're not the only one, guys. I stumbled upon this Benjamin, I hope you got your copyrights in order. But Ord Games is working on a handheld gaming console. And this one is a bit different because honestly, it ties back into the true roots of blockchain-based games, right? The Web3 gaming documentary is on its way to you. And one thing you're going to learn is the original origins, like the beginnings of blockchain games, started on Bitcoin. So Ord's Games seems to be taking us back to those original days, guys. And this is going to open up the world, people of the world, to on-chain gaming, strictly on-chain gaming. On the broader level, though, having hardware devices for Web3 gaming, it's going to do something to the space, guys. I can't quite put my finger on it right now, but if you're invested in Web3 gaming, hardware is something you need to be watching out for. It really is. Now, some of these titles or games, you can tell that their origins go back to OG Bitcoin gaming. I'm talking about Hunter Coin days here, Moto Coin days here, folks. The Bitcoin OGs. I know you just clapped it up for me. Yeah, I've been doing my research. You can see here, though, these games on the surface, they look kind of basic. But you have to understand that this is what the capabilities of true on-chain gaming look like right now. And I think the numbers break down, only 4% of Web3 games are actually on-chain strictly. And that's for reasons. You want to stay true to the ethos of decentralization. You want to stay true to the essence of Web3. But I believe it's 12% that use a mixture of both. And then the rest of it, the remaining pool, is a hybrid where the original game state they exist on centralized servers, but your digital assets, in-game items, things like that all moves on the blockchain, or that data is recorded on the blockchain. Or you'll have it flipped where your assets, your characters, the game progression, that's all on blockchain. But the mechanics, the gameplay, how you enter the game, the environment, everything else, that's coming from centralized servers and traditional Web2 game engines, most likely Unreal or Unity right now. So again, this hardware, bringing it into Web3 games, guys, is going to be crazy. And I'm mad that, you know, the major publications aren't talking about this. Of course not. They're not getting paid to. But let's talk about the company that is overseeing Sui Protocol, Mysten Labs, folks. They want to shape the future of the internet. That sounds absolutely cool. But they are the ones who built the Sui Protocol as well as the Move programming language. They also support the Sui wallet, the building of the Sui wallet. And this was the original blog post here that I was looking for a moment ago. It was under the Mysten Labs tab, my boy. But yeah, I'll leave a link to this again so that way you can read this story. It was very, very fascinating, guys. As far as their products go, Mysten Labs, outside of the wallet, they also give you a name service. This is very interesting. I'm going to tell you a little secret here about these domain names, guys. So I went to look up Sony, right? Taken. Somebody was smart. They went and got that one. But if you go over and you go to PlayStation, right? That one's open at 20 Sui. And the price of Sui right now is like $1.10, $1.15. So about $22, $23, you can get a PlayStation.sui domain name. Now, how is that valuable? Why does that matter? Well, let's say PlayStation in a few years from now wants to build out a dApp on Sui, and they want to use a Sui domain. They're gonna have to buy it from someone. They're gonna have to buy it from someone. And because this is blockchain, the record of you being the first one to secure that domain, that's public knowledge. So they know exactly where to go to. And you'll be most likely able to receive that payment through the Sui wallet. So I was very excited to see this is on Google and iOS stores, as well as your desktop. So like I said, I was happy to see that because not a lot of assets have a signature wallet. And if they do have a signature wallet, if it's not accessible from Google Play, iOS, then that means that they don't have the proper resources and connections in place. So this is another good thing to see. Now, something else that really blew my mind, when we always got to make sure to take a look at the team. The team behind Miston Labs, according to this page, looks like a great group of guys. Not even gonna lie to you. Like, all of the smiling faces on this page, where when you look at some other crypto sites, it's either a JPEG image of some digitized monkey or some overly serious headshot. These guys were really inviting. Okay, that's probably why they got such big name investors like A16, Circle, Binance, Coinbase, Samsung Next. Very interesting. That's their VC arm, basically. Samsung is setting aside hundreds of millions of dollars to invest in the right Web3 startups. And they've already made their choices for sure. Franklin Templeton, that was interesting to see. Those are investors. Now, when it comes to partners, a lot of these names you may be familiar with. A lot of them I wasn't. With the exception of, okay, well, there's Red Bull Racing. Everybody knows that. But it's Netmarble, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the reason why Netmarble is so huge is because of their focus on mobile gaming. They already have about 45 global mobile titles already in circulation. And some of them, and I've brought this up before, especially this title here, King of Fighters Arena. That's running on another blockchain called, well, now Kaya. It used to be called Clayton, but by the end of this month, everything will be converted over to Kaya. There's synergy between Netmarble and what Sui is looking to get into. And having Netmarble in your partner ecosystem, having discussions with an entity like that is very, very promising, folks. It is very promising. So if that's the angle that they're looking to take, they definitely got the right people behind them. Web3 gaming hardware. Look, if I'm overhyping this, please let me know down in the comments. But come on now. This is a first we're seeing here. It could crash. It could completely bomb. I understand that. But on the surface, let's just be excited for it. And then let the market do what it's going to do afterward. Let's take a look at the market movement for Sui, guys. Like I said, $1.16. It's up about 4.5% over the last 24 hours. If you want to know where to pick up some Sui, it's currently on Binance Markets, Coinbase Exchange, and you know where else it is? The exchange that we're using, and that's Uphold, ladies and gentlemen. They are a channel partner. They have been for quite some time. So, yes, if you use the link down in the description, I do get compensated, so I want to thank you in advance. However, Uphold is a great option. They not only let you invest in cryptos, you can invest in precious metals like gold, silver, other fiat currencies. They also just opened up a new vault feature, which is a self-custody option and an additional security measure for storing your crypto. On top of that, they also have investor baskets where you can set aside a certain amount to invest in multiple assets at once, just simplifying the investor experience even more. So with that, again, links to Uphold will be down in the description. I thank you in advance. Now it's time for the best part. If that money is digital, so is the hustle.